Hudson is dead, and they're removing a bunch of other completely unfun things from the game. This is a really, really good balance patch. I'm going to run through it and tell you guys what Theorycraft has been cooking up. Right, so jumping right into it, we're going to talk about the characters. Hudson has been very unfun to play against, just a demon murdering everything to the lobby, right? But what have his major issues been? His issues has been his flexibility with his dashes, his extreme damage and how much value you can get from that, and then his barbed wires in particular. Those are really, really dangerous and bad. But let's see what they did to him. So they lowered the charges on his dash from 2 to 1, and then to counteract that a little bit, they made the cooldown slightly less, right? This is a pretty darn hefty nerf, right? Because having the 2 dashes would allow Hudson to kite from any sort of engage and then re-engage on the enemy. This is a really big deal. This makes him go from being super, super strong and super valuable to being not nearly as good, right? So this is a really, really good change for him. The minigun got a reduction in range from the regular shot version and then the spun up version. That's not the biggest change, but the damage is a pretty hefty change also. Previously, you were dealing 42 damage per shot, I believe the number was. And with this change, this is looking at, if you're getting 12 extra damage per shot with 8% AP ratio with 2 items, right? We're looking at with 5% now, where that's going to be dropped down to roughly 8.5 or something like that. I'm just doing quick math in my head. So instead of doing 42 damage, we're going to be doing 35.5 damage. So that is a 6.5 decrease. And so we're getting around a 17% nerf or something like that. Pretty big damage reduction. On top of these other things, this is pretty darn substantial. And that 17% damage reduction is just going to be that much that allows you to just escape a little bit or turn the fight against a Hudson, right? Especially with his reduced mobility, like I keep saying. However, his barbed wires are also extremely, extremely powerful. And they are modifying them. These aren't the biggest changes, but he's getting a 50% reduction in the, I guess it's a reduction from full to 67% of the range on the barbed wire. That's really big. Being able to apply it in front of him, on top and behind people is really, really powerful. You're not going to do that nearly as well. Now you're going to have to get on top of them to do it, or you're going to use it to defend yourself. But since you only have 1 charge, you can't of your dash, you can't do that realistically, unless you're fully committing into a fight. Right? So Hudson is severely nerfed. Hudson is he will not feel as good to play in general, and so you're going to see a lot less of him in general. So this is great. Hudson may be dead. All right, Brawl. So, we got a lot of weird little things here. True story, they ended up basically we're going to give Brawl a little bit of a buff, and then people really complained in the content creator Discord. That didn't end up happening. We're really happy. Instead, we're getting some nerfs. I love nerfs to Brawl. Let's go, guys. This is really good. Not saying Brawl isn't going to be strong still, but these are just a definite step in the right direction. Because honestly, he probably needs something like the Hudson treatment. But you got a bug fix to his Flame Step Shift level 3 upgrade. Dodging allies / your own projectiles no longer builds stacks of Blazing Spirit. That was probably giving a good amount of extra value on the passive. So that's not that is not working as intended. That's good. But having this is really, really big. Previously, especially in high tier play, Brawls were using their ultimate to finish off Wisps, right? And what it would do is it would give them a 100% reset, and so it's completely free and it was super valuable to do always. And you could basically always guarantee your team was having an advantage in the fights just because the enemy team couldn't stomp their res or couldn't sit on their Wisps and try and counteract and res them, right? So this is a really, really big nerf to Brawl, because instead of getting a full reduction, he's only getting a 25% reduction of the cooldown. So you can't just do it willy-nilly now. However, they said that knocking an enemy hunter still sends them to death box and fully resets, right? I don't like that in general, but it's at least good they're stopping it being on the Wisp. And then they also did a little bit of bug fix, you no longer jump while using your ultimate to get jumped in the air. A weird little thing you could do, right? So what are they changing about the items now? Because here we're gonna see some really, really cool stuff. Not on Amplifier, the other ones though. On Amplifier is no longer working quite as it used to, right? Abilities with multiple versions like Kingfin's dash aren't getting a reduction on both. So on Kingfin, you could run Amplifier, and then you could get a reduction on the cooldown of both of the dashes, spamming them, one after the other. And so you were really rapidly like cutting them down to 50% value, and then or 50% cooldown, and then they were also, you know, doing each other, right? So you were getting really fast cooldowns, and then they were both at 50%, right? And so you're charging it faster and then getting more value from each one because they had the same value. They reduced both of them. Right. And so now instead you only get one of them. So if you use a Kingpin's dash, like the air one, then you only get the reduced cooldown on that one. Granted, they made it so you will keep the stack count on the regular dash, which is good. So you can continue dashing around like normal, but you only get the cooldown reduction. And then they made it so you now get the cooldown reduction benefit before increasing the stack. So that means that this is a like flat nerf to amplifier, because before it was at its base like 18% or so cooldown reduction, and then every ability you used, even if you changed abilities, was getting an extra 5% cooldown reduction. So this was just a heavy nerf to amplifier, and probably for the best. Nothing crazy, but probably for the best. But now we're getting into some other changes I think are really, really good. Power user, giving people the ability to preserve their powers when they die, does not work on exotic powers anymore. This is really, really good, because having these sort of exotic powers and then having soulbound meant you could just go inch your brains out, right? And having items that are that valuable, you shouldn't be able to go do that, right? And so they're slowly starting to kind of nerf down some of the silliness in the game. This is really, really good to see. And so this doesn't work anymore, right? You can't just go like use your blink dagger, jump at the enemy team, get stunned up, die, and your team just goes and reses, and guess what? No, nothing happened, right? This is really, really good. All right. Moving on from this part isn't as good. I'm not crazy about this one. This one is a little bit more common of what Theorycraft tends to do. Instead of making something like balancing the system, they tend to just kind of hammer nerf it out of existence, right? And so Mana Cloak was on a 10 per second mana cost. And so if you had a mana item, you were just like barely using anything. Now it's on 30 a second, right? If you have like a mana item that's putting you somewhere at like max level in the range of like, I think it's like 340 or so mana. So you can cloak for like, you know, 7 seconds or so before you're like running to the point where you're going to be pretty close to Oom, right? And so this is a kind of a hammer nerf to the power. It's not useless. It requires a lot more like brain-filled gameplay, which is good. It just doesn't change the fact that they can still just pop out of nowhere and blow you up, right? So I don't like this change, but it's better than nothing. And then we're getting this really fun change. Power Shuffler is currently being disabled. Power Shuffler was ridiculously busted, as you could just shuffle up powers constantly until you got super good stuff. And any sort of exotic that you found, right? As like they said, exotics are too prevalent in this game and easy to come by. Any sort of powers that you found, you were getting the ability to shuffle until it was one of the good ones, right? Like, so you're walking around, you find like Wisp Suck, well, you just shuffle that bad boy until you have Blink Dagger or Rewind. You find like whatever one of these other ones that wasn't the best, you just shuffle that bad boy until you get the really, really juicy stuff, right? You get the nuke. You're playing in pubs, not the best in pubs. You shuffle that bad boy until you get the nuke, until you get the Blink Dagger, you get the Rewind, right? Or the red GA. Like, there's just so much free value you get from Power Shuffler, and that's no longer in the game. That's really, really good. It was creating huge power disparities. It was making the game a little bit cheesy. So yeah, guys, this is really good to see overall. I'm really happy that they made these changes. I think they're listening to the community, which is really good. They do tend to listen to the community. In the past, they weren't focused too much on balance and stuff like that. But as the game is now in open beta, they have started to focus on that as a priority, because they know there's a lot more people who want to play the game like it's a full game, instead of just like this fun little playtesting game that you just have to deal with the wackiness, right? Or the BS, basically. But having Hudson nerfs, Brawl maybe needs some more nerfs. He'll probably become like what we talk about next. Everyone does. And then some change, like just removing of some of these problems, like with Power User, Power Shuffler, and then some changes to Mana Cloak. We're just seeing, like, this was just a good patch overall. No problems with the patch at all. Other than, things could be a little bit better, but you handed me these and you said take it or leave it, we're taking it, right? So, good.